In recent discussions surrounding the financial landscape of educational funding in Texas, several alarming patterns have emerged that mirror historical injustices observed in California. The premise of this narrative revolves around the systemic issues of debt, transparency, and fiscal responsibility in school districts. The fundamental question arises: how did we reach a point where educational funding becomes a vehicle for fraud, thereby defrauding taxpayers and jeopardizing the futures of our children? The challenges presented by borrowing from wealthy investors and banks for educational construction have spiraled into a complex web of financial mismanagement. It is crucial for Texas voters to be acutely aware of the implications of borrowing billions more for school construction, especially when the fundamental rationale revolves around care for our children. The implications are grave. They extend beyond mere budgeting issues into the realm of moral and economic bankruptcy. Too many individuals suffer from cognitive dissonance. They struggle to reconcile the notion that school districts, meant to uphold education and community welfare, would engage in deceptive practices. The assumption that these institutions operate in the best interests of the children often blinds property taxpayers to the stark reality that they too are caught in the crosshairs of financial exploitation. The claim that these initiatives are for the kids rings hollow when there exists an undeniable correlation between such funding methods and the financial strain imposed on families across Texas. The crux of the argument is straightforward. If the school districts had not intended to misrepresent their financial standings, there would be no cause for concern. Yet, the evidence suggests otherwise, indicating intent to commit accounting fraud, bond fraud, and property tax manipulation. This reality necessitates a call to action for every affected voter, property owner, and citizen in Texas to wake up to the reality of their financial situations and the tumultuous implications of these fraudulent practices. The figure of over 4 million meals served annually by organizations like the Feeding Texas Network exemplifies the stark societal needs existing alongside our educational system's disparities. Addressing hunger could very well intersect with the repeal of property taxes, offering a dual benefit: alleviating financial burdens on families while ensuring that funding for education remains stable and equitable. The question remains: is it possible to prioritize both educational advancement and the basic needs of our communities? There lies a pressing concern, particularly for those involved in supporting bond measures without fully understanding the consequences. The challenge is to demand transparency and clarity from school districts regarding their financial practices. Engaging with local communities, fostering open dialogues, and breaking the cycle of limited discourse at board meetings could serve to enlighten voters on the reality of the bond measures they support. By undertaking a thorough examination of the school district's bond debts, voters can make informed decisions. An analysis of the total outstanding fraudulent school district bond debt, alongside an understanding of the average mortgage values and household incomes across Texas, reveals a stark picture. Homeowners are shouldering debts far beyond their means, often to the detriment of their financial stability and well-being. Delving deeper into the bureaucratic machinations reveals a troubling structure of incentives that favour the sustaining of debt rather than its repayment. Many households may not even be aware that they are on the brink of financial collapse, their liabilities outweighing their equity. It raises poignant questions about personal accountability and the role of misinformation. Did they knowingly or unknowingly agree to a system that perpetuates their financial strife? The current landscape comprises approximately 147.9 million housing units across the United States, with about 82 million designated as single-family homes. Herein lies the opportunity for collective action. If each homeowner understood the implications of school district debt and its effects on property taxes, there could be a significant shift in public sentiment. The data paints a bleak picture. Only significant reforms towards accountability and fiscal responsibility within school districts can alleviate the pressures on property owners. The misuse of funding allocated for essential educational infrastructure cannot continue unchecked. As school districts have sought to leverage their capacities to borrow through various financial instruments, they have often overstepped legal and ethical boundaries. This pattern of leveraging debt creates a cycle that not only harms existing taxpayers, but further burdens future generations with unmanageable obligations. The fraudulent nature of this debt is highlighted by the fact that many districts continue to roll up interest and extend principal payments without transparent communication with their constituents. Such behaviour reeks of malfeasance, creating an environment where the trust inherent in public education is undermined, leading to widespread disillusionment among stakeholders. These zero-coupon bonds, while enticing in their immediate financial relief, come with strings attached, compounded interest that accrues over a prolonged repayment period. The implications of such strategies are dire, leaving future generations to bear the burden of their predecessors' financial decisions. Lack of transparency in how school districts allocate and spend bond proceeds further complicates matters. Some districts utilize funds for items not directly related to construction, creating an incongruity between public expectations and actual financial practices. The purchase of personal technology, for example, raises questions about the long-term viability of such investments when future generations bear the costs. The current system is structured to favour the passage of bond measures, leading to a scenario where interests benefiting from such measures hold undue sway over the electorate. Educational districts have become entangled in a cyclical problem characterised by chronic underfunding and a relentless pursuit of bond increases to cover up financial mismanagement. Engaging the community in these discussions is vital. Voters must understand that their voices matter. The aftermath of ill-informed decisions can resonate for generations, potentially creating a societal landscape fraught with economic instability and despair. In a state where educational funding is perceived as a priority, it is paramount that voters are equipped with the knowledge needed to uphold fiscal integrity. The emotional weight of this issue cannot be overstated. We stand at a crossroads where decisions made today will clearly define the future. Are we prepared to let history repeat itself? Or will we rise to the occasion, demanding accountability, transparency, and reform from our educational institutions? The future depends on our collective action, and the time to act is now. Texans need to become vigilant stewards of their financial futures, questioning the practices that have led us to this precarious point in time. Only through informed decision-making and community engagement can we navigate the turbulent waters ahead and foster a system that genuinely prioritizes the needs of our children and families. Renting or leasing may often give the impression that tenants are free from financial responsibilities related to educational construction and the costs associated with borrowing money for it. However, this perception is misleading. While it is true that individuals or businesses who rent or lease property do not pay property taxes directly, it is incorrect to assume they escape responsibility for educational construction funding and borrowing costs. Property owners typically factor these costs into the rents or leases that they charge their tenants. Consequently, when a school or college district sells bonds to finance construction projects or educational needs, these costs may translate into higher rents for renters and lessees. Understanding the financial mechanisms at play is crucial for both landlords and tenants alike. Bonds sold by educational institutions are a form of debt, meaning that when these districts need funds, they borrow money from investors, which they must repay over time along with interest. This process fundamentally shapes the financial landscape for property owners and their tenants. Exploring the types of bonds used for educational financing is essential, particularly the distinction between current interest bonds, also known as fixed-rate bonds, and capital appreciation bonds, often referred to as zero-coupon bonds. Current interest bonds provide clear benefits and are easier to comprehend. For instance, when someone invests in a current interest bond and holds it until it matures, they receive regular interest payments and get their principal amount back at maturity. To illustrate, if an individual purchases a $1,000 current interest bond with a 25-year maturity at a 2.5% interest rate, they can expect to receive $25 in interest each year for 25 years. At the end of this term, they reclaim their original investment of $1,000, accumulating a total interest of $625 over the bond's lifespan, which is typically tax-exempt. However, during the entire 25 years, the school district must collect property taxes from property owners to cover these interest payments and eventually repay the principal to bondholders. This creates a financial cycle that intertwines property taxes with the educational financing system. Conversely, capital appreciation bonds operate under different terms and can present more complex financial implications. Those purchasing capital appreciation bonds do so at a significant discount to their face value, meaning they won't see interest payments until the bond matures. For example, if one acquires a $5,000 capital appreciation bond at a discounted price of $1,477, they won't receive any interest payments during the 25 years until they are paid the full $5,000 upon maturity. The total value gained over those years is $3,523, which, like current interest bonds, is exempt from taxes if deemed tax-exempt. The appeal for educational districts in using capital appreciation bonds is substantial. They can borrow more money without immediately imposing taxes on property owners. This allows for more flexible funding during times of financial constraint. However, as with current interest bonds, eventually, the districts must recoup this money through taxes on property owners, making it a deferred cost. The situation becomes complex when considering the impacts of assessed property valuation on borrowing limits for educational institutions. Tax and debt limits are closely tied to this annual assessment, and fluctuations in property values directly impact the amount of money that can be borrowed. Should property values rise, educational districts may borrow more compared to previous years, facilitating significant construction programs. On the other hand, if property values decline, the borrowing potential shrinks, creating financial challenges when more schools are needed. This was starkly illustrated during the property value decline in Texas from 2007 to 2011, where certain regions saw assessments drop by as much as 50%. Despite the pressing need for new school facilities, the educational districts in these regions found themselves constrained. Within this tight financial landscape, capital appreciation bonds emerged as a strategic solution for bypassing direct tax and debt limits. Educational districts could declare a lower bond value based on the deeply discounted sale price while pushing off payment obligations. This approach comes with a gamble, as schools predict that property values will rise enough to produce sufficient tax revenues for bond repayment. If these anticipated increases fail to materialize, future obligations can pose a significant financial burden. The political implications of capital appreciation bonds are profound. Often, district officials have little immediate accountability for debts incurred today because future elected board members, who are not the ones who approved the bonds, will bear the political consequences when payment comes due. This creates a cycle where current board members can approve substantial debts without considering the long-term effects on future generations. Despite the criticisms and risks associated with capital appreciation bonds, their use continues to be defended by educational administrators and district officials. Their arguments typically center around the immediate demands of voters for timely school construction, the lack of alternative financing options, and a plea to view the broader construction program rather than fixate on individual bond issues. However, these defenses can sometimes mask the complicated realities and potential pitfalls of such financing decisions. Using public funds for campaigns to pass bond measures raises ethical concerns. While legally allowed to inform the public about the impacts of proposed bond issues, it is often too easy for educational districts to cross the line into campaigning territory, employing taxpayer money for promotional efforts. Campaign consultants play a significant role in manipulating public opinion to secure voter support for bond measures, and their strategies can include extensive surveying and focus groups paid for by taxpayers. Critics argue that these funds could be better allocated elsewhere, and many are skeptical about the integrity of the feasibility surveys if they predominantly yield results favouring bond initiatives. This raises questions about transparency and whether or not the ultimate aim is genuine community input or merely paving the way for favourable outcomes for district officials. The educational sector's reliance on bond measures is noteworthy, especially given the high success rate of approval among voters. In California, for instance, approximately 80% of bond measures secure the necessary votes, thanks in part to the efforts of consultants and the strategic use of public funds in preparation for these measures. This success has created a system where the advantages lie predominantly with those advocating for bond measures, leading to a nuanced discussion about the fairness of the process. As communities grapple with the reality of educational financing, the tension between immediate educational needs and long-term financial sustainability becomes increasingly critical. The reliance on capital appreciation bonds and the political implications of their usage challenge the notion of fiscal responsibility. Understanding the larger implications of these bonds is essential for stakeholders across the board, from property owners to renters and the educational institutions that rely on these financing methods for growth and sustainability. As these discussions unfold, it is vital for communities to remain informed and engaged, ensuring that the decisions made today do not come at the expense of the educational needs of future generations. In the realm of public education financing, the path to securing bond measures is often paved with careful strategy and the judicious use of resources. A consulting firm specializing in school bond measures has devised a comprehensive finance measure checklist for success, outlining 5 crucial steps that can lead to victory. It is noteworthy that 4 of these steps can be funded and coordinated through public resources available to school districts. However, the 5th step necessitates a shift in approach, urging districts to distance themselves from direct political campaigning and instead delegate the responsibility to a designated political entity, commonly known as a political action committee. This transition typically occurs after a year or more of diligent groundwork laid by the community college district or K-12 school district. During this time, significant efforts are made to gather polling data, communicate directly with voters, and share the pressing need for school construction through various media channels. By the time the campaign reaches its partisan phase, substantial taxpayer-funded initiatives have already been implemented, ensuring an advantage for the proponents of the bond measure over any potential opposition. When we compare the election campaigns of supporters and opponents, it becomes clear that supporters often have the upper hand. A robust network of political consultants, seasoned in establishing successful campaign committees, collecting contributions, and effectively conveying messages drawn from feasibility studies, positions school districts favourably in the race for voter approval. The world of political campaigning operates akin to a competitive business. Thus, consulting firms are incentivized to build and uphold stellar reputations grounded in successful outcomes. On the other hand, professional campaign vendors stand ready to design, print, and disseminate campaign materials, while endorsements from influential political, business, and community leaders can be swiftly secured. Active participants in phone banks and precinct walking initiatives can be recruited, with financial incentives provided when needed, reinforcing the supporters' campaign efforts. Furthermore, potential contractors within the district can extend their reach, actively promoting school bond measures across Texas through various channels, including local offices and businesses, enriching the campaign's scope and visibility. However, the landscape for opponents is markedly different. Often, no formal opposition exists against a bond measure. When it does arise, it may come from a handful of individuals known to be community gadflies or anti-tax activists. The credibility of any opposition typically hinges on the presence of a local taxpayer organization that can provide a structured platform for dissenting voices. The efficacy of such organizations is greatly enhanced when they are staffed with full-time professionals accountable to a governing board. In infrequent cases, a well-funded opposition campaign may be mounted, backed by local business leaders and interest groups, and managed by experienced political consultants. Yet even in these scenarios, potential opponents are often at a disadvantage. They must consistently monitor local news sources and the agendas of educational district meetings to remain abreast of developments regarding bond measures. This vigilance is crucial, particularly when governing boards pass measures immediately before legal deadlines, offering scant time for opposing forces to mobilise their responses. Once an opposition is established, strategizing and mobilizing efforts are paramount. Participants are required to comprehend laws regarding submitting opposing arguments in ballot pamphlets and undertake the task of drafting these arguments. Ensuring timely submission in accordance with legal requirements is critical. A few members may volunteer to contribute commentaries or letters to local newspapers, necessitating follow-through to maintain credibility. Some may even invest personal funds to create lawn signs, which entails a systematic process of designing, approving, printing, and distributing these materials. Despite the structural and financial advantages held by supporters, bond measures still fail nearly 20% of the time. A report from the Public Policy Institute of California revealed critical insights. For instance, larger urban school districts, particularly in the San Francisco Bay Area and Los Angeles, enjoy a greater frequency of bond proposals that tend to receive voter approval. This trend appears to correlate with the demographic of registered voters, which is predominantly Democratic. Conversely, smaller rural districts, such as those in the Central Valley, struggle with similar measures. In many large urban districts, the prevailing sentiment is that bond measures breeze through approval with little contention, as long as the proposals are not overly frequent, thus mitigating concerns over opposition. The financial landscape surrounding these bond measures is also revealing. Often, the top donors contributing to campaigns for bond measures are current or potential contractors for finance and construction sectors. Transparency regarding campaign contributions and expenditures remains limited, with many counties imposing cumbersome processes to access public records. The profiling of contributors reveals a pattern where companies that stand to financially benefit from bond sales predominantly fund these campaigns. Community college foundations often emerge in discussions about campaign funding, legally permitted to channel privately raised funds to political action committees campaigning for bond measures. Historically, controversies around such contributions have arisen, particularly when significant sums are involved without proper disclosures. In one notable instance, the Sierra College Foundation donated considerable amounts to bond measure campaigns, leading to scrutiny and allegations that contributions were strategically funneled to obscure donor identities, thereby raising ethical concerns. In 2012, allegations of unsavory relationships, commonly referred to as pay-to-play practices, surfaced regarding bond underwriters making sizable contributions to bond measure campaigns. The ensuing media attention highlighted a concerning trend. Financial firms, having contributed to bond campaigns, were subsequently hired as underwriters for the very bonds they helped to secure. These findings garnered significant attention and scrutiny from regulatory bodies, leading to discussions on the need for stricter oversight regarding campaign contributions and the associated financial contracts. Amidst these challenges, efforts to improve transparency and accountability in bond measures persist. Legislative actions have sought to mandate clearer reporting of financial implications related to bond measures. Voter guides are under continuous revision to better serve the electorate's understanding of proposed measures, demanding clarity on potential tax rates, total debt service obligations, and implications for local taxpayers. In tandem with these developments, there is a growing recognition of the complexities surrounding municipal finance that can often overwhelm average voters. Educators and community activists advocate for more digestible forms of information, calling for graphical representations and summaries that distill critical data points for public consumption. Finally, calls for audits of financial practices within educational districts aim to uncover and rectify instances of mismanagement or non-compliance with existing regulations. The implications of such audits could provide valuable insights into the operational integrity of districts engaged in bond financing, fostering a climate of accountability that extends to all stakeholders involved in the process. As the dialogue around public educational financing continues to evolve, it becomes increasingly crucial for stakeholders to advocate for policies that ensure fiscal responsibility while supporting necessary investments in school infrastructure. Through diligent efforts from both supporters and opponents of bond measures, the goal remains to foster an educational environment that serves the best interests of students, educators, and the wider community.